What's up, guys? It's KB. Make sure you subscribe to the Underground Sports Philadelphia YouTube channel. Click the bell icon down below so you don't miss a single video from us. And thanks for tuning in to another video from Underground Sports Philadelphia. Now let's get into it.
Philadelphia, baby, you're gonna love it. Best sports fans in the world. Actually, the worst, but that's what makes them the best.
Welcome back to Top Bins, the show bringing you all the action from England and Italy, SerieA Premier League, with just a touch, just a little bit of Champions League sprinkled on top for your pleasure only. I'm your host, Matt, joined by my co-host, Dom. Dom, how are you? Not tonight, this afternoon, recording a little earlier than we typically do. How are you?
A little early. I'm good, man. I'm tired and just got home from work. So another exhausting day at school.
Yeah,
the same old song and
year.
dance. March is coming up, and March is like the worst month of school. You don't have a day off. Like it's just nonstop. The weather's bad. Like the only positive is the sun starts coming up a little sooner. Makes my commute not too bad.
Yeah, this is like one of my personal agendas, is that March is actually one of the worst months of the year. Like it's March and January for me are just two of the worst, because January you have the post hype of all the holidays and you just have nothing to look forward to. It's just cold. It's just cold and sucks, and it's dark all the time. And there's really nothing to look forward to. March is like one of the biggest lies ever told. People say they love spring weather. They're lying to themselves. They love fall weather. When people describe what they love about spring weather, they're describing like late September. That's what they're talking about. It's like, I love when it's like in the 70s and kind of sunny and, like it's not too hot. And it's like, yeah, that's the fall. You get 3 days in spring like that. Like tomorrow is going to be like in the high 70s and it's randomly February. I'm sure that's not a harbinger of doom. But people love to pretend like March is good weather. It's the only month where it goes from like 37 to 29 to like 58, and it like snows on one of those days. Like it's awful. It is an awful month. They used to like, I remember when I was a kid, I don't know if you had this, they would call it in like a lion, out like a lamb, because like March is like typically like it's bad weather to start and it's like really crappy, and then it kind of gets nicer as the month goes on. It has never been like that in my life. It's just a lion the entire month. I don't know how that became a thing, but
no, the warm weather doesn't come until like end of April, beginning of May, like the tail end, because you get that one like week and then it's hot. It's just hot, and early summer hits. I was one of those people, though.
We don't get stable. We don't get stable like hot weather until like early June. Honestly, like people every year, I think people convince themselves that it's gonna be super nice, and then it's not until like the second week of June that you're like consistently in like the high 70s, low 80s. Like that's later. It's later and later every year.
I never thought about describing fall weather like you did. Like it's what everybody says is about
fall weather.
Yeah.
Anytime people love to say they love spring weather, they are lying themselves. Spring weather is terrible. There's pollen everywhere. It randomly snows once in March. It's always rainy and crappy and windy like hell. When people say they love spring weather, what they mean is, I love October. I just don't realize it yet. I have not figured it out that I actually just really like when it's like 68 and nice, and I can kind of wear whatever I feel like wearing. If I want to wear shorts, I still can. But if I also want to like wear pants and a long sleeve and maybe even a hoodie, that's also on the table for me. That's not spring weather. Spring weather is you still got to wear a winter coat. Still got to wear a winter coat in March. So anyway, on to the games. Maybe we've lost a few along the way with my rant. I'm sorry to all the spring lovers out there. I'm actually not. You're lying to yourselves and everyone around you if you say you love spring weather. The title race in England, Dom, took a dramatic turn over the weekend. We talked about, we recorded right after the result or the day after the result, Arsenal and City last week, and we talked about the responses that we wanted to see from Arsenal and a little bit from City too, right? Because they've struggled for consistency a little bit this year, at least compared to years past. Arsenal had a great response in that game against Aston Villa. It didn't start out that way, of course, but the fact that they were down twice in this game and were able to pull it back and find a winner, and then a fourth goal, which was ultimately just kind of the icing on top. I think really allowed them to celebrate the champagne cork, all that. The Jorginho goal to win it is equal parts luck, equal parts. This is just what happens with top teams. When they go on to win a title, you have these moments, and I think it takes a fortunate bounce off the back of Emi Martinez's head. I don't feel bad for him because it just feels a little bit karmic. It felt like Kylian Mbappe. You know how there was that story about Pogba putting the witch doctor curse or whatever on Mbappe? It felt like maybe there's a world where Mbappe put a witch doctor curse on Martinez. Like maybe
stop.
Maybe that's what happened here, and maybe he deserves it for how weird he was about Kylian Mbappe in the World Cup. But it's a huge result for Arsenal in the very obvious way in that it gives you 3 points. But I think they had dropped points in 4 straight games, and it felt like maybe this is where this team wobbles a little bit. And I think having like the mental resolve to not just win this game off the back of that defeat against City, but the fact that you were down twice away to Villa, which is not the easiest place to go. It can be a true challenge, and this team is certainly better than most in the league, and it has performed pretty well. They're like a comfortably mid-table type of team, right? Like it's a challenging thing, and I think they performed mentally, which was really what I was looking forward to, and seeing their response, and I think they passed that very well.
Yeah, I mean, you got everything you needed from Arsenal in this game, right? Goals from all around, assists, solo goals, what do we call it? Cheesy goal, a real cheesy goal off the back of the keeper. But I mean, this is big for the title race. I mean, they gave up a 4-point lead, let City come in and tie it, and now they get this win and really put some pressure on because I'm pretty sure we'll mention it after this, but City didn't fail to get 3 points, or City failed to get 3 points. So this is a big statement win. It's against a team that they should get a win like this against, and you got stuff from all around. You were quick to criticize my guy Martinelli came on as a sub and then scored a goal. I mean, it's garbage time. It's garbage time.
His goal
but...
was Dom. I can tell that you didn't watch the highlight for this one because I'm gonna have. I want you after this is done to watch the Martinelli goal, and you tell me what a beautiful piece of individual skill it was.
I will.
How hard it was for him
to
the ball 30 yards into an empty net because Emi Martinez went up on the corner to try and tie it 3-3.
I will.
It was a very challenging goal for him. I just think I think for me it's a great result for Arsenal. It sort of reestablishes them at the top, and then let's get into it too because Manchester City played afterwards and were away to Nottingham Forest. It eventually draws 1-1. I think the story from this game, and I think these two games are funny to look at in comparison because with Arsenal, you have this great response. That's kind of the narrative that we just evoked and that I think most people have spoken about in the aftermath of that game. And I actually think City played just as well, if not better than Arsenal did, yet the result just didn't go their way. This is just the margins that you get when you're playing at this high level and you're in a title race and every little thing counts. I thought City played pretty well. I thought they actually dominated Nottingham Forest and were very unlucky to not score more in this game. I think Erling Haaland did not have his most clinical day, which is not typical of him. And I think on another day, City probably win, 3 or 4-1 in this game, maybe even 3 or 4-0. And it's we're just kind of as you are, but these are the margins. These are the margins when you get in these title races and they get in these top competitions where it just becomes very challenging to separate a lot of teams. And that's it. This is the line now.
Yeah, I mean, when you play these lower table teams, they always have something to prove. They always want to, steal a few points because they're fighting relegation spots. So points against a big club, especially the likes of Manchester City, any type of points from this game are needed. So that they're going to hunker down defensively and really try to stifle Manchester City. And they were successful in doing so. I mean, but like you said, any other day, especially with the way the City controls the game, they had 73% possession and had 88% pass success to Nottingham Forest 65. I mean, they should easily win this game. It's a tough letdown for City, and now they have ground to make up against Arsenal.
Yeah, I mean, Nottingham Forest too have actually had like a pretty decent home record. They drew with Chelsea not that long ago. They beat Liverpool in October at the City grounds, and they've got some big results at home. And I think if they're to stay up in this Premier League season, which it looks like they might do. They've certainly established a little bit of distance between them and the relegation spots. But that's what you build off the back of that from is those home results and what your home form looks like. So it's a big result for them too, like you mentioned. But yeah, the eyes are obviously going to be on the fact that this title race now is still very competitive. But Arsenal reclaimed some ground, which is a huge result for them. And so they sit 2 points ahead of Manchester City now with a game in hand. Which is an important thing to note. But it's better to have the points than the game in hand. You always want to make sure that you've actually got it in the bag before you start to count. Similarly, this is a team that I think people have started to, maybe in the last few weeks, whisper as being a part of the title race. Well, we have a 3-team title race in England this year. Manchester United. It's really off the back of same brother. Really off the back of a man named Marcus Rashford, who has been in red hot form pretty much since the World Cup break now. He has just been scoring for fun. And I don't know that this is a team that's going to be winning the title this year or being really like long haul in the race. But if Marcus Rashford keeps playing the way he is, it's going to be very hard to not start to think that maybe, just maybe, that this team could win at least a silverware. They obviously have the EFL Cup final this week, but he's only failed to score in 3 games since returning from the World Cup, which is just kind of an insane number. Like that's honestly just not normal what he's done since coming back.
I kind of was underrating him on Twitter not that long ago, but I was not aware of really just how well he's been playing. And he's really put this team in the goal scoring department on his back. He's the only one in double digits. The next closest guy on the team has 5, and that's Bruno. I mean, like it's the Bruno and Marcus show right now with Manchester United.
Yeah, I think too. You have to give a lot of credit to Weghorst. When he's come in, this team has definitely played very well, and I think it just goes to show, like one, these guys know a lot more than we do. I think there are certainly some arched eyebrows when Weghorst was linked to Manchester United and ultimately moves there. But I think if you ask the average person, like between Ronaldo or Weghorst, who's better for this team, people would probably still even today say Ronaldo. But honestly, Weghorst has filled that role much better than he has. He's much better at understanding space and movement within it, and I think frees up a lot of like you said with Bruno Fernandes. I don't think it's a surprise that he's had some better moments since Ronaldo has been out of this Manchester United team. Right, the fact that you've even brought him up, like that this guy was released and it was on really negative terms. The fact that it hasn't been a story, I think, tells you a lot about how good this team has played and just what a great turnaround it is. Like United have been a circus over the last few years. The fact that we're not focusing on that is, I think, a great credit to just what they've done. And Marcus Rashford just turned in form. Pre-World Cup, Marcus Rashford had what did he have? He had 4 goals in the Premier League. He's had 10 since returning from the World Cup. He was having an okay start to the season. He was looking all right. But yeah, he's had a severe uptick in form. And, I in some ways, I like the guy. He's a likable person. And it felt like, too, over the last year and a half that he was very clearly not at his normal self. He had that really bad back injury, which he played on, which he shouldn't have played on. Mm-hmm. He had a shoulder thing, too. Like, he had these, things, and he finally, I think, got a little bit of a rest, a little bit of break, was able to get, surgery, I think, too. And he finally looks healthy, and I think that's the big thing, too, is that I think for the last few years, he was probably playing not at his full physical ability and capacity. So I think now that it certainly seems like he's healthy again is a really big thing. And yeah, I mean, he's only 25 as well. He's just been like such a fixture, that we don't think about it a lot, but he's still a player that I think could maybe go up a tier. You could go up a level if this is like the form that we see him at.
Well,
going forward, who knows?
Do you think that some of that uptick is because he's moved from like left wing to, more of like a center forward? Because
he's still playing out on the wing. He's still playing like left wing, maybe on the right a little bit. I think the biggest thing is that United were not able to be flexible prior to this. I think that's been the biggest change for me is that there's some interchangeability within this like front three and the really like the two attackers especially that I don't know that they had in previous iterations of this team. And I think Marcus Rashford is the type of player that really likes to exploit space because we know he's obviously very quick. But and this is an underrated thing with a lot of forwards. He understands angles very well, which sounds stupid, but like he understands his position in relation to the defender's position very well. He understands like what angle he needs to score. And when he's playing as he is now, where just every shot is turning into a goal. You saw it in the Barcelona game. You saw it this past weekend against Leicester City, where he has these moments where he is a little more aggressive in taking on a shot, maybe from a tougher angle than most players would. And I think that speaks not just to his confidence, but I think also just his awareness and knowing his own ability. So, yeah, I think that there's just been a lot of good free-flowing stuff. I'm surprised, too, because when Eriksen got injured, I was really curious about this team's like midfield depth and how that was going to look, and that hasn't really been an issue. If there's one knock to their title challenge, potential title challenge, I would say that is it actually, though, is that they don't have this depth that other teams, like this is a team that on their day, I think could beat anyone in England, and they have, they've beaten, Arsenal and Manchester City already this year. I just don't know depth-wise if they really have legs for an actual title challenge, and it's going to take a little bit of work outside of them. They're going to need Arsenal and City to slip up a little bit more too. They still have a game against City to play, which could obviously, swing things in their favor, but they don't have any more against Arsenal. So yeah. I'm excited about it. I like seeing Rashford doing well, at least in some part of me does. But I don't take a lot of pleasure in United looking great again.
The only other thing that I want to credit them with is I want to bring it back to Weghorst. Like, aside from just understanding like space, what he offers in the press, that like a little more aggressive and consistent than Ronaldo. And like
a little,
and I think that United have really, really benefited off of that because they have wingers at these outside forward type players that are supposed to be your main goal scorers. So having a guy like Weghorst that can kind of like open up space for the midfield to work with because he's pushing the back line with his press, allowing, if the ball's played into him, those forwards to get in front of him. It's working well, but it's working a little too well. I don't like seeing Manchester United play this well.
Yeah, not great. Everton get a big win. We highlighted this game because Everton have obviously had a tough go of it this year. Leeds have too. They fired Jesse Marsch, still have not filled that position. Everton win 1-0. This was at home for them. This has not been a place that they've particularly enjoyed playing recently. At least this year, this was their home form was one of the reasons they stayed up in the Premier League last year. But if they are going to stay up this year, it's similar to what we were talking about with Nottingham Forest. Like, this is sort of where you make that stand and you're able to get those big results. It's a huge win. I think so much was riding on this for both teams. And it comes from Seamus Coleman, the goal, not who I think most people would have predicted to be like the man
turning back the clock.
I mean, truly. Well, he said that because the goal was sort of those like it was one of those. It was definitely a cross, but the player's going to play it off like it was a shot. He gave a pretty convincing argument. He said that because of like some of his injury stuff and he couldn't get his hip to open up or turn the way he wanted to. So he's like, I'll just take a shot. Like, that's definitely not what happened. He definitely tried to cross it and messed up. But I do appreciate that he kind of tied in the fact that he's an old man as like his reasoning for why it was actually a shot. He's not just clever though, it's just because like my body has limitations. So I did like that explanation from him. But yeah, I mean the bottom three now is West Ham, Leeds, and Southampton. And Southampton have made up a little ground. They had a big win against Chelsea. So really the bottom five teams are on Everton with 21, Bournemouth with 21, then West Ham with 20, Leeds with 19, and Southampton 18. Any three of those five could be going down. Even if you want to get like a little more brazen and talk about Wolves, who are just sitting with 23, even a team like Leicester, Nottingham Forest with 24 and 25 respectively, could still be sucked. You're talking about a 5 or 4 point difference between those teams and relegation spots. Like relegation again, I think it's going to be a big scrap right up to the end. If Southampton, they obviously part ways with Nathan Jones, new manager, potentially coming through there. They play Leeds this week, which is another just huge game. West Ham play Nottingham Forest. Like it feels like every week we have sort of some big matchup with the bottom 5, bottom 6 in England.
Right now, it's kind of like the race to 30 points. Like whoever can get to 30 kind of is safe for now. Maybe a little bit more than that, but you look at that bottom half of the table, 11 through 20. It's nobody's safe. Nobody's safe.
I would say Villa and Crystal Palace. I would be really surprised if they went. Like Villa have really stabled out, and I think are fine. Crystal Palace, I could see like a really bad 7-8 game stretch, and maybe they are like in the conversation. But I've seen like just too much quality out of both of those teams to really think like, I'm just not totally sold that they're really going to go down. But yeah,
I'm not saying that they're going to go
in the
down.
table, I think.
I'm not saying that they're going to go down. I'm saying that, if they're not careful, teams could put pressure on dropping them down in the table, making their lives a little less comfortable. They're in a comfortable
You just
spot.
sound like the It's Always Sunny bit where he's like, no, it's the implication. It's the implication that something might go wrong. Like, what are you implying? You're implying they might get relegated. That's what you're saying. That's the pressure that we're talking about here. Dennis, it sounds like you're going to hurt these women. It's the implication that Nottingham Forest might get relegated. No, they're not gonna. But it's the implication they might.
Yeah. Exactly.
You
can make it more entertaining.
Looking forward to this weekend and going forward, checking back in with this relegation stuff because that's just as exciting as the top of the table to me, at least in England. Let's hop over to Italy real quick. I don't know what it is about Lecce. Have just had this ability this year to get the big scalps, the big teams. I'm not going to pretend like I understand it. I'm not going to pretend like it makes sense to me because frankly it doesn't. But they have found a way to yet again. They beat Atalanta by a score of 2-1. They've had a habit of doing that this year, of beating some of the bigger clubs in Italy, despite being a newly promoted team. I didn't think they had a great chance of staying up this year in SerieA, and they look on their way to do that. But they've had a lot to say. They've beat Lazio. They drew with Milan, of course. And that was like a really exciting game. They've already beaten Atalanta once this year. Like they've had these big results this season, which I think have gone a little under the radar. And people forget all the way back in August too. They drew Napoli. One of the few times that Napoli have dropped points in SerieA this season have been at the hands of Lecce. Like they've had a nice little track record now of getting big results against big teams.
Yeah, I mean, those kind of results consistently over the season is a good indicator that they're probably going to stay in the league this year. They just have a way of getting points. I kind of mentioned it earlier, right? You have those teams that like understand that if you can get some points, off of these bigger teams, even if it's a point here and there, like it makes a big difference in who stays up and who goes down. So, credit to them. Credit to Lecce for doing this. I mean, they're kind of like this year's Salernitana type team that like you don't expect them to do this well. Next thing you know, they're going to be in the league for another year. So hopefully they keep it up. That'd be cool to see. They got to get it done against teams that are of equal caliber. The only positive I can see out of this for Atalanta is that Højlund got another goal.
Yeah.
Consistency.
I think it's a weird thing with the outside of Napoli, like the top 6 in Italy, where each week like everyone wins except one team. Everyone has to kind of like draw straws. It's like it's your week to drop from 3rd to 6th. Like it's
Basically
that
yeah.
has been the story over the last like a month and a half with Italy, and just how everything's kind of worked out there. Salernitana were terrible last year, and then it wasn't until the Great Escape from the last few weeks that they end up staying up. Lecce have done it. They're a little more comfortable, this year. Still in not home free, of course, but they're 10 points clear of the relegation zone. I think if you would offer that to a Lecce fan at the start of the season, they certainly would have taken that, because they're outperforming even Fiorentina and Sassuolo, 2 teams that I think a lot of people would expect to be potentially even fighting for European spots. I think it's a lot of credit to them. Gabriel Stravezza, of course, has been their main goal scorer this year, and he's had some bright moments. But Lecce have been I've been impressed, and this was the team that I picked to go down. So in some ways, egg on my face, right? But that's the way it goes. Speaking of a team that we picked to go down at the beginning of the season, actually performing the way maybe we expected them to, Cremonese still do not have a win, Dom.
Are we nine draws, 14 losses.
Are we going to see them win a Coppa Italia, but also finish as like one of the worst seasons ever?
I'm praying for it.
I got really curious about this. I want
to see that
because I wanted to see, because we brought it up. We've been bringing it up a little bit over the show, and I think we brought it up last week. And I really wanted to look to see like what are the worst starts ever, because this is not even a start anymore. But it's like, how long has it taken for teams to actually get their first win? So the worst in Europe's top 5 leagues in the 21st century. Derby County in 07-08, it took them 32 games. This is the team that finished on 11 points. It took them 32 games to win a game. Ancona in SerieA in 2003-2004, took them 28 games. And the president, who after resigning was arrested for fraud, declared bankruptcy, with the club having to restart from C2. So they they had a tough time of it.
Isn't that the same thing that happened to Parma?
Perugia, I think similar. Perugia in 2002 and 2003, and 2003 and 2004 took on 26 games to win. Schalke in 2019-2020, and then 2020 and 2021. 25 games, and Hellas Verona in 14-15, and then 15-16 with 24 games. Cremonese are on 23 without a win. They are, just a few game weeks away from cracking this top 5 list. I'm shocked. I'm shocked that we're here. I'm shocked that we're in this moment. I did not expect them to be great, but the fact that we could be looking at history here. I do think it'd be hilarious because they beat Roma to get to the semifinals of the Coppa Italia. They play Roma next in the league. I do think it'd be kind of like cosmically funny if that's the team that kind of breaks their duck and but here's their next 3 games in SerieA.
It's not easy.
Roma, Sassuolo, Fiorentina. Neither
easy.
of those are easy games. And you have Monza, Atalanta, and Fiorentina in the Coppa Italia, but that's neither here nor there. But those are not games that I feel like I feel great about. We
may be seeing a record, to be honest with you. We may be seeing a new record.
Is it really inconceivable that this team could lose their? I mean, they've already done it. They've already lost to so many. But is it really that crazy that they could lose the next 5? And we're talking about this team as one of the worst teams of the 21st century in terms of winning results. Like, we're getting close, getting a lot closer than I think maybe people want to think.
I still can't believe that they drew Milan. We gave them one of their 9 points. That's
we've all had those moments. I think it was Newcastle that lost twice to Derby County in 07, or lost and then drew against them, gave them 4 of their 11 points. It was something like that.
Nice.
So, it could always be worse. Like could always be worse. Speaking of it could always be worse, Champions League.
I'm sorry.
Well, here's the thing. It didn't hurt me as much because I felt that this was going to happen. I think actually last week I said I'm looking forward to getting on the show and talking after Madrid beat Liverpool 4-0. It wasn't 4-0, and yet it felt like 4-0. It hurt again.
Jeez.
I don't know what it is about Madrid. I don't know what I did to them in a past life that they've hurt me so many times. I don't know if it's because we never shut up about that 08-09 Champions League round of 16 where we beat them 4-0 at Anfield, and that's like one of the highlight comps that you see all the time in Twitter and YouTube. I don't know what it is. I don't know what we did that. We gave them Xabi Alonso, one of my great loves, gave him to him cheap, and this is the repayment we get. It's just pain in the last 15 years. I think it was frustrating, speaking as a Liverpool fan, because when we've talked about this a lot, Madrid had this dark magic aura about them where they don't die and they find their way. And I actually saw a Reddit post that they've been more likely, I think, in the last year when they're down 2-0 to actually win the game than lose it. When they've been down 2-0, they've been more likely to win the game than lose it.
It's DDA. It's scripted.
Like, I'm sorry, that's stupid. That is just simply stupid. That they have been able to do that. Yeah. So in how many games is this? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 10 games that this has happened. They have won 5. What is this? Yeah, 5 of them. So 5 wins, 4 losses, and 1 draw in 10 times that they've been down 2-0.
Is this only in the Champions League, or is this like over?
No,
team
that's
history?
Across the Champions League and the league as well. But in the Champions League last year, we can remember they did this twice. They were down 2-0 to PSG. They were down to Manchester City. And then in this one, they were down to Liverpool, and it felt like things were going Liverpool's way. They get this amazing Darwin goal to open it up. He pulls off one of his flicks that he tries, and it goes in. And Courtois makes a mistake. The man who robbed us of a Champions League in May gives us a goal, and you think like maybe this is the turnaround. And then at halftime, it's 2-2 because Vinicius Jr. Puts on a show, and then also Alisson makes it, and then it just devolves from there. It doesn't hurt as much because in some ways I expected this. It still hurts because you got this 2-0 lead and you think to yourself, well, maybe this is the turn. Maybe we'll go in a sneaky little Champions League run. And that'll be kind of what we had to commit. Nope. Madrid are the executioners of my happiness. They have just robbed me of so much joy in my life. And I got to say, I'm going to be the first to say this. I'm getting a little tired of Real Madrid. I'm getting a little tired of it. I'm getting a little sick of constantly being the opposite end of some of their best moments in Europe over the last 15 years. I'm just getting a little tired of it. I'm just getting a little sick. All right.
Hey, in the late 2000s, early 2010s, I mean, it's how I felt when Milan would get Barcelona every group or knockout stage. It's like Real in the group, Barca in the knockouts, like every single year. It's the worst thing. It's prime Messi. Just we have one trophy of that, and it's a highlight for a player that didn't like fully like reach his like potential. That's it. And then poof, we were gone from the Champions League forever. Well, not forever, but for a while.
Yeah. Beating Messi in the Champions League is not for everyone. I understand that. I just
okay.
Not everyone's able to do it.
Okay.
It's not here nor there. So the good thing is I've been doing this thing where I put a bet on the opposition team, and so that way, whatever team I'm rooting for loses, at least get a little bit of happiness. So I put a bet in maybe like a month ago for Madrid to advance between this, and at first I was thinking, 15 minutes. I'm like, well, I might lose this money, but that's fine. That's cool. And then by the end of the game, I'm like, I wish I just bet on them to win this game. On top of that, I should not double up. I'm such an idiot. So
do a live bet when they're two
Napoli
down.
did not disappoint. I should have. Napoli did not disappoint us in their Champions League knockout sort of debut. I mean, this team has really not been at this stage of the competition. Really, European fixtures in general have not been something Napoli have enjoyed over the last few years. And I think, too, and we were talking about this. We were talking about the fact that maybe thinking about them as Champions League, dark horses, because they have such a significant advantage in the league. I mean, they really, I'm not saying they can take their foot off the gas, of course, but, they have a 15-point cushion. It's not inconceivable that Napoli could, make a semis of the Champions League, could make the final, could win the Champions. I mean, they're one of the best teams in Europe. They have Osimhen, who had a great performance again, which is just, how he is. That's just kind of the things we expect from him now. So they beat Frankfurt 2-0. It goes back to Naples, and you kind of expect that's the end of this tie. I would be surprised if Frankfurt, not just get a result, but get a big result in Naples. That would be very unexpected in my view. So yeah, at least we have an Italian team. We might even have two Italian teams in the next stage of the Champions League, which has not been commonality for them. Milan, of course, have a cushion against Spurs, and we'll see how that game goes when we return to this in March. But it's nice to see Napoli doing well. Yeah,
I mean, even yes, Frankfurt went down to 10 men right before the 60th minute, but Kvaratskhelia gets stifled all game up until I just want to bring up this play. I didn't realize until I watched the highlight over of that back heel. He wears low socks. He's a baller. He's just a pure baller. Just to have the presence of mind, Di Lorenzo's coming onto this, trail. Back heel. Well taken too. What a shot. Just slots it in. That's not even his strong foot, correct? Di Lorenzo's a right-footed right back. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's well done. Well done. That was just beautiful. I mean, credit to Napoli. They're really people are still I see the occasional person on Twitter talking about Napoli, credit to them, but I don't think that they'll go far. I think that this team, European power rankings, they're top? They got to be top 4, top 5.
Yeah, I think 538 does a little thing. I forgot to mention Inter are playing currently. When I said
0-0,
there could be two teams, and I didn't mean to write them off. I don't want any Inter fans to come at me. I really respect the Nerazzurri, so I don't want any issues. All right, I want no problems here.
I'll say this: I have it on. I have it on right now. They've got pressure, but they're not taking their chances well. And
so according to 538, according to 538, they use a soccer power index. Very American. The soccer power index. Brought to you by Gillette. The best a man can get.
Not a sponsor. Free promo. Let's do it.
Well, I can tell you this thing is way off. Manchester City is number 1. Bayern Munich sitting at 2. Barcelona, Real Madrid, Arsenal, then Napoli. So number 6, according to them. Then it's RB Leipzig, Liverpool, and 8. That terrible. PSG and Benfica round out your top 10. So Arsenal being I think that's fair for them in that kind of range. And Napoli, I think that's probably fair, although I would have Napoli. I think Napoli probably better than Arsenal, and they've played better than Manchester City. I think Manchester City's getting a little respect there for running up the score a few times, and they kind of have these gaudy wins that I think probably boost a ranking like this. I think overall pretty fair though. Napoli's circling around the top 5. Yeah, I think it's not inconceivable that we could be talking about them as a team to really look out for. I think their team, should my team miraculously advance to the next round, they won't. Napoli are not a team I'd be looking forward to playing against.
No,
I've already done it twice this year, and it's not a fun experience. It's not a fun time. Even though we did beat them once. That's gonna be the story of Liverpool's season this year. It's we beat them once. We did that. We did beat City once. We did.
What a trophy!
Beat Napoli once. Yeah, that was cool.
What a trophy!
Hey man, when you've won so much over the last few years, I think it's only fair that you.
Wow.
I can't believe
that's very pretentious
I can't believe
of
this.
you.
I'm joking. I can't believe last year though we were like 2 games away from a quadruple. Never been done before, and now we're just like, this is just awful. This is I can't believe the come down. I've never done hard drugs. This has got to feel what a come down off of a hard high is like. It just has to. I'm never going to
feel like-
learn from myself, but this has got to be as close as I'm going to get.
Those of you who watch Hand Egg, this must be what like the Patriots fans felt like after everything. Stop
No,
winning Super
because I
Bowls,
haven't
Tom
had the
Brady
joy
leaves.
of like 20 years of. I didn't even have the joy of 20 years of dominating success. I had 1 league title because we're playing against a team that cooks the books and is able to buy 100 million pound players and not play them. And it's like no NBD. And I'm begging for a midfielder. I'm on my knees growling. By the way, Leipzig leveled it up with City 1-1 in the Champions League. So yeah, it'll be interesting when this game ends 1-1 and then City wins like 5-0 Manchester. That's kind of way that one's going to head. Yeah, I Champions League is fascinating. I think there's no clear European powerhouse. I know we talked about Napoli and Real Madrid are always going to be a threat at this stage, but the fact that we're going to lose, likely Liverpool, we're going to lose one of PSG, Bayern Munich, in these first stages. Those 2 teams, again, one of Liverpool and PSG and Bayern are teams that you could expect to be sort of in the later stages of the game, later stages of the tournament. So, already I think you're going to open up the field a little bit more than it feels like you would typically get, when you're going into the quarterfinals of the Champions League. So I'm looking forward to that, and I'm looking forward to the fact that maybe I'll be able to watch it without having to worry about Liverpool, and I can just kind of focus on the games. That's how I'm going to spin this. Is that I'm going to look at this very healthy and mature. That's not how I'm actually going to feel, but that's how I'm going to tell people that I feel.
So I have a question for you. You mentioned Man City. I saw a video the other day of, I think it was the dude from like AFTV, and then he was talking to, I guess, the dude that does like Manchester City TV or the fan TV, the like bald dude, and he was like addressing the like saying that City has no history. Do you think that now, like, especially because the way that he put it, he said his son, who knows nothing but like the success, right? Like starting from like Aguero to now, like that's history for them. So, and like now, like nobody can never like deny like all the success that they've had and the dominance that they've had now. Like, does City now have a history? Like compared to
They've had like limited history, if you're talking about like history is also subjective when you're talking about sports, because what is meaningful to one team or club or fan base is going to be different for someone else.
Mm-hmm.
I do think we already have, I think, a case study in this in Chelsea. Now, Chelsea had more history, right? Again, a nebulous term that is subjective. But Chelsea probably had more history prior to Roman Abramovich than City did. At least Chelsea were a regular Premier League team at that stage, and were established, had won some trophies and things like that. But no one really brings up that Chelsea. Now, at the moment, I can remember, especially again as a Liverpool fan, like a lot of like there was a chant too about like them not having history, right? And it's all oil money and things like that. I think, as time goes on, people lose sight of that. In the same way, Newcastle in 10 years will be, a team. And Newcastle are playing in their first cup final for like 70 years, this Sunday, right? And, they're a team that, has certainly had some big moments in English football, but have largely not won things, and City were the same way in a lot of ways. So, yeah, like the next, we forget, the City takeover has been a thing for 13, 14 years now. This is, there are going to be people that have only known them as a very good team with a lot of great players and have won a lot of things, and that matters. It's why you had so many Manchester United fans and Arsenal fans. The the turn of the century, right? Because those were the clubs that were winning everything. It's why if you go back to the 70s and 80s, you have a lot of Liverpool fans because they were winning everything. Like it's just that's the way it goes, and that's why in Italy you have a lot of Juventus fans, a lot of Milan and Inter fans, right? Because these are the clubs that perennially win things, and that's what people get attracted to. So, I mean, they've won a lot. I think for me personally, and I'm not even just saying this because Liverpool are the most winningest England team in Europe. I'm genuinely saying this. I think you have to win a Champions League to be in that status. And I think there really was a sense and a feeling prior to Chelsea finally winning theirs in 2012 that like now you've sort of broken through to Europe's elite. Like it's one thing to be dominant within your league and within your and what City have done there is like wildly impressive. Like we know that. There are going to be two things that I think will limit people's reaction to that. Is one is if they go again without winning the Champions League this year, then like again, it's going to be that same thing. And two, they do have this investigation going on within the Premier League about their infractions. There's over 100 accusations that they're going to have to answer to. We all know that City have not been totally forthcoming with all their financials and all these things. And that is always in a very different way to Chelsea, I think going to be something that limits City's recognition from rival fans and neutral observers. There's always going to be, I think, at least some part of it, and it might diminish over time, but I think there's always going to be some part. There's always going to be some part of people that look at them and say, well, like, they bought it all, and people say the same about Chelsea, but it does feel perhaps different with City because of the accusations and I don't want to get myself in trouble here, but the alleged fraud that they've been engaging in, in terms of all these fake sponsorship deals that grant them an unlimited pool of money. They have a massive pool of resources. Now you have to do shit with that, but still.
I mean, you know what gets eyes off of the scandals that your club goes through? Winning multiple Champions League trophies. Trust me, I would know. They speak a lot. I mean, you're talking like you really want to talk about history of success. A team like Blackburn that hasn't been in the Premier League for years has a Champions League title. Nottingham Forest has Champions League titles.
Nottingham Forest.
These teams have history. I remember I watched a documentary on Nottingham Forest and like their fans and like how the stadium is like right up against the water and like all this stuff about just how like when you step into their stadium, like you can feel the history and you can feel, the passion of the fans and stuff like that. Like granted, a lot of those fans that will create that for City are like 16 years old right now. So like it will eventually happen. I agree with your take on that. But yeah, they really
and don't sleep on Aston Villa. By the way, they also won a European Cup.
Yes, you're correct.
I don't want to disappoint our Villa fans here.
You're correct. They need that. They need that Champions League trophy. That's something that people can hold over their heads forever. You talk about any other big team in Europe, they all have a Champions League trophy, no matter when they won it. Like. You can include Juventus is in that, Inter's in that, Milan's in that, United, Chelsea, Barcelona. There's so many teams, and City may be better, but they got all of this money and no Champions League titles for it. You talk about like Juve of the 2010s. They didn't spend nearly as much money, but they were still dominant. I mean, they didn't win a Champions League title either, but it's like, is the league dominance enough? I don't think it is.
Yeah, I think in some ways, the league dominance is enough in a lot of ways, because I always remember this City team, especially under Pep, as incredibly, and it's again a different perspective for me because I'm a Liverpool fan and I've had to pay attention to. I think I've been much more aware of how absolutely bizarre the run that these two teams have been on in the last few years. Like it's unprecedented stuff, and again, like we don't have. It's always hard to recognize within the moment that you're watching like history being made, or that you're just never going to see this again. But when we have two teams that are getting 99 and 98 points, and that's like your title race, it's just again, the only other teams in my lifetime that were doing that kind of thing were Real Madrid and Barcelona at the turn of the 2010s, when you have just two of the best teams, two of the best managers. You have a few like Juve, Napoli years where it gets like low 90s. They're both like very good, and those are really good title races. But generally speaking, that just isn't a thing, And I think City have been very dominant domestically. They've done a domestic treble, which is it is a big achievement. Like that is when you win the league and both cups, like that's massive. I do think like if you're thinking like resume, pedigree, whatever nomenclature you want to use, winning in Europe is the ultimate marker of success. It just is. Even the team like Bayern, right, that have not been able to do that as much as they would have liked to, that have been so successful in the Champions League, right, like so very frequently in the semifinals, in the later stages of the tournament, have 2 Champions League titles to show for that in the last 20 years. Yeah, that's the same as Liverpool. Yeah, and like Bayern have been a much more successful team in that time, right? And I think that speaks to that the Champions League is not always just about talent and not always just about the best team, because I don't personally, and this is not me being salty, but I don't believe that Real Madrid were actually the best team. But there is an element of luck that I think no one ever wants to admit to when it comes to the Champions League. There are these tiny fractions of moments that just matter. And that's why we love it too at the same time, is because everything hangs on just this balance and these needle point moments that are just very hard to predict. They're very hard to control, and you just don't get them back. And that's the part of the pleasure and the pain of it all. And I think, City have maybe been a little unlucky at times, a little unfortunate. I can remember that Spurs City quarterfinal from 18-19. With the Sterling Aguero like marginal offside call, like those are the moments. Like that's just the stuff that happens sometimes to you, and it just goes against you. And they had that kind of collapse late against Madrid last year, and those are just the moments. So yeah, until they win in Europe, I think it'll always feel a little bit unfulfilled. Like they've yet to really fully join the club. And even then, I think there will always be a group of people that will always see them as outsiders. And City fans, I think, kind of revel in that. They don't really, they always talk about it. They don't really care about the Champions League. They boo the anthem all the time. Like that's not something that they've focused on. And I think too, that is a difference that might change too, because they still have a lot of fans that were probably around pre-takeover. And for them, winning domestically is amazing still. You're winning the league, winning the FA Cup, winning the League Cup. You shouldn't, even the great teams still take a lot of pride in those things. Now, when you've had a team that's won a lot of league titles, the next step is that Champions League, right? And City, I think, are starting to turn that corner. So,
no,
good discussion on history. I like it. Let's look ahead.
Tell me what's going on. What's coming?
Well, I was just looking ahead to the weekend. This is what we do. We just we sum up, some games to watch, like Milan Atalanta, a tasty one. I personally think that's going to be a great game.
My heart rate will be so high. I hate playing them. I absolutely hate when Milan plays them, because Gasparini just has a way. I feel like he hates AC Milan. Like he just absolutely hates them and just somehow gets his team to always get results. It's not going to be a fun game for me. I'm going to be stressed out of my mind. It's
Well, we have the EFL Cup final. That's going to be a lot of fun. Newcastle versus Manchester United. Manchester United have a chance to capture a trophy, the first under Ten Hag. Newcastle, the first trophy in generations, and kind of the marker of this new generation, this new iteration of Newcastle United, of course. Tottenham versus Chelsea on Sunday morning. That's always a good one. I think that always has a good amount of drama. A little, 15-16 throwback with Leicester Arsenal. Leicester Arsenal playing in February with a title race hot on the news tracker. That's always nice. If you're looking like me to really hate yourself, you can watch Liverpool Crystal Palace. I don't know why I'll do that, but I will. But yeah, those are the games to look out for. This weekend and just keep an eye on. Definitely some good ones mixed in there. Some big ticket items. Tom, anything to say before we get out of here?
I'm starting to make YouTube videos. It doesn't have to do with real life football, but I am doing reviews of different tactics that FIFA players put out to the public, seeing how they actually play in game. giving them a go. So if you want to see some cool FIFA highlights, or if you're a FIFA player and you want to get better at the game, just tune into my channel. Maybe you'll find something that works for your game style and could help you out. Aside from that, I'm planning on starting streaming soon. When I get the content for that, I'll be doing it on stream. So twitch.tv/HarryApe. Come check it out. Come chill. Join the community. And it looks like Romelu Lukaku just scored for Inter. Porto down to 10 men. So Inter looking like they're going to get the victory today. That pained me to say that.
It is still, at this moment, I know, I could hear it in your voice. It is venomous. It is still 1-1 in Leipzig in the 87th minute. So, we'll see how that goes. Champions League doesn't return for like 3.5 weeks, so it feels like the stakes are not as high. I'd kind of expected Inter to possibly go through. So that's it, though. We'll be back next week. We'll be talking about the first silverware of the season after the EFL Cup final. I'm sure some big storylines, of course, perhaps another twist in the title race, maybe some relegation scraps, all those things. We'll be back to lock it all up for you and talk to you soon. TTYL. Bye.